stations across the land, joepags.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email. It's all right there, plus the live video feed. It's the Joe Pags Show. Glad to have you here. Really glad to have back the president of judicialwatch.org. It is Tom Fitton. Tom, how's it going today?
I'm doing well here in isolation in coronavirusville.
Well, I'm glad to have you on because people like you haven't stopped working. People like me, we haven't stopped working. We want to get the information out there, and people have been dying for something new on the Steele dossier, on this fake report. I mean, I'm going to call it a fake report. You can either validate that in a second or not. But oddly, this has been put in the back burner. We've got to talk about Trump bad, Orange Man bad, Hillary Clinton good, Joe Biden's the best, Obama supporting this and that. Coronavirus is front and center. But Tom, you guys have uncovered some amazing information that I think the people watching and listening need to hear.
Well, it's pretty clear that we've had these IG reports come out, a big one most recently, detailing the FISA abuse targeting Trump, that they had information that Steele was compromised. But now we have more footnotes that have been declassified that should never have been classified to begin with, that confirm dramatically that they knew or should have known that that there was a political animus behind the dossier that wasn't reported to the court, and that they had strong suspicions, which was quite obvious to anyone reading the dossier, that this was Russia disinformation, and that Steele was using Russia-based sources that had an interest in destroying Trump with disinformation and by making up stories about his trips to Moscow and such. So they had all of this reconfirmed. It's all being reconfirmed in the footnotes that have been released, that there was never a good faith reason to initiate any spying on the Trump team. And of course, we've already known that because we have the document showing, A, they fired Steele because he was a leaker and a liar. And then on top of that, despite that, they continued to try to bring him in because why? Because the dossier he had already provided to them wasn't panning out.
Right.
So they were desperate to bring him in, and they were using Bruce Orr to get around the fact that he had fired him, that the FBI had cut him off as a source. They used Bruce Orr, who was compromised because his wife worked with Steele through Fusion GPS. They were talking to Bruce Orr, who was talking to Steele and laundering the information directly there. So, but it highlights that the dossier was known to be a fake, should never have been the basis for anything, and that so the big headlines that you kind of are distracting is that the Russians were working with Clinton, or may have been. Well, it's even worse than that. It was a joint operation between not only the Clintons and the Russians potentially, but the FBI. Because despite knowing all of that, the FBI still wanted to work with Steele, who they knew or had reason to believe was working with the Russians.
It's like a spy novel, Tom. It's amazing how this thing is coming together and how you guys are doing the work over at Judicial Watch. The president of judicialwatch.org, it is Tom Fitton. So let me ask you a couple of questions. In your opinion, now that you've seen all the research and you've uncovered as much as you have, do you think there was ever a good reason or ever enough evidence to go to the FISA court to begin with, even the first time?
No, and you have to remember the FISA court was only one aspect of the spy operation against Trump. They were full on spying against him before the FISA warrants. Remember, they were sending people into the campaign with Papadopoulos. They sent Comey himself was spying on Trump. Through the Dossier operation. He was briefing Trump not because he wanted to brief him, but because he wanted to see his reaction as a target. They were using the intelligence briefings to gather intel on their operation.
Right.
So the question is, who wasn't under the Obama administration? You had all these agencies: Defense, State, CIA, NSA, FBI, DOJ targeting Trump. You had foreign governments working with the Obama administration to target Trump. It was a joint international conspiracy that may have even involved the Russians to target the candidate, then president-elect, and then president of the United States. Incredible. Nothing like it in American history.
No, but we're only finding out about it because of your hard work. Had Hillary Clinton won, we don't know any of this, do we?
We might have known some of it, since some of us, I'm sure you were at the time too, Joe, noting that the Russiagate smear was a smear.
Right.
So we were going to be pushing it. It was going to come out in some ways. Certainly a lot of this probably wouldn't have come out if the president wasn't president. But there's still a lot being withheld under Trump Can you imagine what we've been held under Trump, under Clinton?
No,
the deep state is running the show on a lot of this. I mean, you see this with the Senate report that was a fraud as well, where they were minimizing the involvement of the dossier on this Russia smear operation run out of the Obama White House.
Let's talk about Papadopoulos for a second. And I've interviewed him a couple of times. He seems to be a righteous dude, and he was a target and didn't fall for it seems. When it comes to Papadopoulos, why was he not in the FISA warrant applications? How would that have hurt their case had they included him?
Well, they did use him, include him falsely to try to get the FISA applications against Page, which is the real problem.
Right.
Because they
Page had an office at Trump Tower. This is the way to surveil Trump Tower.
Well, they knew Papadopoulos wasn't an agent of a foreign power.
Right.
And they had no credible reason. With Page, they had this fake dossier to justify it. That was the reason they targeted Page, because the dossier was their crutch here. No dossier, no FISA warrant. Papadopoulos, they didn't have the dossier. You know, and I just want to go back. I believe that the Russians, to the degree there were, quote, Russian operatives involved, they were practically speaking Western intel sources as well.
Wow.
So this was a self-licking ice cream cone. This was the deep state international style run out of the Obama White House, masking all the intel, which is essentially just one piece of smear, and pretending there was multiple sourcing behind it, when in fact it was one big lie, kind of wandered in various different ways. And it's like, you know, who witnesses? Me, myself, and I. With the dossier, they were saying, well, what's the information? Well, we've got the dossier. Oh, and we have another version of the dossier from the State Department. Oh, look, and there's a report about the dossier. And they pretended to the court those were three distinct pieces of evidence, when in fact it was all one big lie, wandered three different ways.
No, it was all them.
The self-licking ice cream cone.
Well, I've never heard that term before in my 53 years, but I like it. Self-licking ice cream cone is exactly what it was. And for those who don't understand what you meant, and you said it very clearly, but let me say it even more plainly. They were actually putting fake news stories in like Yahoo News and then going to the FISA court and saying, hey, look, there's an interest in it. There are news organizations covering this now. They actually were putting them in the news organization outlets, right?
It was even worse than that, Joe. They were citing leaks to the media as separate pieces of evidence for the dossier.
Wow.
When in fact the leaks to the media were about the dossier. So it wasn't a separate piece of evidence. It was just a report on the evidence they were showing to the court.
Then they presented it like it was new.
Why hasn't the Justice Department done anything is what I want to know.
I don't know.
It's
a great
inexcusable.
Question.
It's inexcusable. This was a broad conspiracy to defraud the court and to target the president. And he's a crime victim, and there's nothing been done, and I'm not seeing evidence anything is going to be done of substance.
Well, the FISA court came out and said, you better stop doing this. And that's pretty much all they said, right? They basically said, you better adjust how you're bringing cases to us. But they could have held all these people in contempt. They could have easily said there were crimes committed here. And exactly right. Falsifying information, lying about the reason to get these warrants, surveilling people illegally via the Fourth Amendment. And guess what? Russia collusion happened, it seems, but it was on the left, not on the right. So do you, in your heart of hearts, do you think anything's going to come of this? You guys get your hands on 138 pages of bombshell information. The DOJ's got to do something, don't they?
You know, I think they'll probably indict that FBI official Kleinsmith, who allegedly altered a document to change it from Page as a patriot and working for the CIA to Page as an agent of a foreign power, essentially.
Stunning.
You know, he may get indicted. He may even plead out. I don't think there'll even be a trial. But in terms of like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, McCabe, look, we already know that there were 2 referrals for criminal charges for McCabe and Comey for lying about leaks, and DOJ refused to do anything. I don't know why we would think they're going to do something on a much more dramatic fashion on falsifying information to the courts. I just don't see it happening, and I'm not seeing any evidence it's going to happen. The DOJ is being asked to investigate itself. The FBI is being asked to investigate itself, and we are wondering why nothing's being done.
Yeah.
This is why I think the president should appoint a special counsel from outside the agency that reports directly to him, Maybe he can talk and partner with AG Barr, but he should be using non-DOJ resources, maybe other federal agency resources to investigate the DOJ, FBI, CIA, and others involved in this, because it doesn't seem to be going anywhere under the current system.
It's Tom Fitton, the president of judicialwatch.org. Get there. Go follow him on Twitter. Follow Judicial Watch on Twitter as well, and see the incredible information that they're uncovering. Does it really take 2 years? You guys entered this Freedom of Information Act suit back in 2018, January of 2018. It takes 2 years to get the information?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're just getting, for instance, struck page materials. I forget when we filed that lawsuit. They're giving them at a rate to us at 500 pages a month, and that's what the pages they review. We don't get all those pages. Wow. They withhold others. And we just got emails from Strzok showing that he and other FBI officials were mocking President Trump, that they knew almost immediately that McCain and his team leaked the dossier to the media.
Well, why do you think McCain did that? Is it because of that personal grudge over what Trump said about being a hostage? What was McCain's issue? Do we know?
No, he hated Trump. I mean, It's no surprise to me. I mean, McCain was implicated in the IRS scandal, too, according to documents we had.
Right.
So he certainly hated Trump for various reasons. Why else would you leak obvious Russia disinformation to try to destroy the man?
It's crazy. It's Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. The investigations are amazing. They continue. But one last thing on Strzok. Yeah, but Tom, you might have those emails. We've all seen the texts, but he was able to do his job in an unbiased fashion. You know that, right?
Well, the IG didn't conclude that. He thought there was reason to believe he didn't do that.
Well, then he should face charges, should he not?
I'm not seeing any evidence that he's going to face charges.
And Lisa Page also. I mean, she goes on Twitter like she's been attacked by the president. She was fully a part of this, right?
Yep. When you see Brennan, Comey, and the way they behave in public, do you see people worried about facing charges?
No.
Or maybe they're just putting on a show, right? Bravado,
It's very, very odd.
Putting on a brave face, but I don't know. I'm not seeing it. And, who knows? Maybe tomorrow there'll be a grand jury and they'll all be hauled in and all of a sudden things will heat up. But past experience is a pretty good indication of future behavior here.
I'm suggesting we don't hold our breath. It's going to be Tom Fitton, judicialwatch.org. Get to that website. Follow him and Judicial Watch on Twitter. Tom, always enlightening. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, brother. We're back after this on the Joe Pag Show. Stay right here.